start the recording. Welcome, everybody. Hi, Renee. Hi, Laura. Oh my God, it's great to see some very familiar faces and names. Hi. Okay, welcome. I am Anita Torres, the Director of Certifications for the chapter. And wait, are you guys seeing the screen? Are you seeing the slides at all?
We are not.
No. Okay.
Now we're seeing something.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. So again, welcome everybody to our part 2 with Ron Price from Yukon Learning, and his wonderful partner Brooke is also here. So thanks for being here today. Just before we get Ron started, okay, what's going on here? Okay, just wanted to introduce you all to our 2023 to 2025 executive leadership. If you haven't already been introduced to them, we have our current president, Scott Cruz, which we had a leadership change, and he's graciously taken us on. And we also have our president-elect, Ebony Lawrence, and our president-elect for 2025, and for 2024, we have Yolanda. So we always want to send them a big shout out. And if you ever want to reach out to them, please don't hesitate. And then here's the remainder of our board. We've been blessed to have so many wonderful people supporting our chapter. We also have a new chapter leader, John, and I don't know if I'm going to say his name correctly. He's the VP of Programs. Rosa, who is our diehard leader, is now our past president and new leader mentor. And then we also have Alicia Ellis, who's also in our session today as our director of webinars. So thank you all for what you do for our chapter. We're always looking for volunteers, okay? So those who can those who can do more, volunteer. So we're always looking for those opportunities. And here are some openings on our board that you may take a quick peek at and jot down anything that you're interested, and then connect with one of the board members, and we'll certainly talk to you about that. The other point to make is that if you're not a member of our national as a power member, please check out their website at td.org, power member. There's so much value in bringing both local opportunity and national opportunity to all of you. And if you didn't know, all ATDCFL members receive a complimentary subscription to the Degreed platform. So please check it out. It has a wealth of learning and resources to provide you and support you in reaching your goals. And as the director of certification, I am so grateful to share with you that a lot of our programs are based on this talent development capability model, including supporting anyone who's interested in obtaining the CPTD certification. So if that's somebody out there, feel free to reach out to me, and I can talk to you more about participating in what we call the multi-chapter virtual study group. And we'll have one coming up in February. All right, so without further ado, we are going to have Ron Price continue with his learning for us on Articulate 360. So Ron, see if you can share now.
I think I can.
Excellent.
And everybody can see the screen.
Yes, I see it.
Thank you for having me back. It's always a pleasure. We have enjoyed working with the Central Florida ATD over the years, primarily, when we're at conferences like many of the attendees are today at Learning 2023. When we're there, it's always exciting to see the smiling faces of your local chapter there volunteering and supporting the conferences and helping us in our rooms. And so we're not at the conference this time, but we'll be back in February and again in April. And we look forward to seeing your faces there. I'm sure many of you maybe will have the opportunity to volunteer over at the conferences from Training Mag and the Learning Guild. So last time we were together, we did an overview of all of the Articulate tools. And then with the second one, we decided to hone in on Storyline specifically. And so we wanted to focus in on some of the tips and tricks that may help you, whether you're a beginning Storyline user or you've been using it for a while, some things that may help you with some of our best practices, or a few things that may slip through the cracks if you're, haven't taken training, or if you're, a lot of people can pick up Storyline and these tools and learn on their own, and or through webinars. And many times they are getting in there to learn exactly what they need to learn to solve a particular problem, but not still yet understanding maybe other elements that they could have done, or maybe more helpful for a future build. So we're hopefully going to highlight a few of those. And before I share the objectives for today, I thought it might be good, either through a show of hands or however you might want to respond, either in the chat. How many of you have used a Storyline? It's a tool you are currently using or have used in the past. And there should be some way. I'm hoping some of you have used it. If not, then that'll be good too. Very limited use. I see you've not used it. Okay. There's a couple in there. Wonderful. All right. So so far, the respondents have been kind of limited or new users. That's great. So I will tweak and shape what we're doing to make sure it's not overwhelming to people who are brand new to the tool. But here are the objectives that we initially set out when I sent them in, and we're going to follow this along the way. So one of the things about Storyline is it is a slide-based authoring tool. So some of you may have experience in Rise, which is not a slide-based authoring tool. It's cloud-based. And so you're actually going to be working with slides. So it's very similar to other slide-based authoring where it has slide masters. So we're going to talk about one of the tips that people sometimes overlook is using those slide masters to their advantage. So we'll briefly take a look at how you can do that. Then we'll talk about setting up defaults. There are certain things that you can do that just make this easier. If you set up a color scheme, or if you tell Storyline when you draw a shape, you want certain features to be included in that shape. So each time that you draw one, you're not having to reformat it every time that you draw that shape. There's also things like format and animation painters that may be helpful, so that if you're trying to be consistent when you're using course design. Certain shortcuts that we tend to use quite a bit, and we can also provide a link to some shortcuts as well. But there are several shortcuts that you use in Windows tools, and if you use those in Windows commonly, they will also work in Storyline when you're working in Storyline. Layer properties, which some of you may not know what layers are quite yet if you're brand new, but we'll talk about what the building blocks are for Storyline, and one of those are a layer. And there are certain reasons you might use a layer, and the properties that a layer has might help dictate why you're using that layer. So we'll highlight that briefly in this call. And talking about triggers, which is another one of our one of the building blocks. And so we're going to talk about how to use triggers, but the tricky part of triggers sometimes that people overlook are the conditions that you might be wanting to use. And so we'll talk about how you can use trigger conditions. Hotspots are helpful for, it's an invisible type of a button, but many times people use hotspots or initial states to delay interaction. For example, you don't want the learner to begin selecting something until you're ready for them to do that. So you can use these elements to help delay that interaction if you need to. And then designing more complex animations with a newer, it's not new anymore, but a newer timeline visualization feature. So that's a lot. If you're looking at these as objectives and you're thinking, wow, we only have around 47 minutes left in this session, there's no way you're going to do this. So we're going to go through these at a fairly high level, and not many times when we're doing the training, we paste it in a way that you can practice and do along with us. But in a session like this, we're going to try to communicate as much information as we can. And then hopefully shortly after the call, you'll have an opportunity to open up Storyline on your own and experiment. If you want to go ahead and have Storyline open, go ahead and have it open. And then as I'm doing something on my screen, you can also see it on your screen as well. And so before I leave this PowerPoint deck, I did want to highlight, and we sent this out last time, but some links that might be helpful. But if you have any questions at all about what we're doing today, here at the bottom, you can reach us here. Let me get into that. Yeah, on this slide here. Oh, I went too far. How about that? There we go. On this slide here, these emails at the bottom, info@yukonlearning.com. That goes to Brooke and myself. And then price@yukonlearning.com will come directly to me. So if you have any questions, you just let us know. We'll be glad to help you out in any way we can. So let me close this PowerPoint out and get into an example of what we mean when we're using Storyline. So I just took one slide to show you, some of how Storyline works. I'm just going to show you this as a quick demo, and then you can see how this was built. And then we're going to come back in and show you some of the tips and tricks in the actual tool. So as you can see, there is a rectangle here. It's white. That is your slide. That is your canvas. So if you've ever worked with PowerPoint before, that's a slide-based authoring. You'll see some similarities. This has been published, and I've only published the one slide. So you'll see it has a play icon. This is part of the player that comes with Articulate. And then there's the ability to control the volume, add closed captioning, and some of the accessibility features here we've turned on as well. I'm just going to hit play so you can see how this slide unfolds.
Anxiety disorders are the most common mental health condition. More than 40 million adults experience anxiety disorders every year. This is more than 18% of the population of the U.S. Even so, only 37% of people who experience symptoms of an anxiety disorder actually go on to receive treatment. Could this be due in part?
I'm going to pause that for a moment because you probably didn't come here to learn about anxiety disorders, even though that's very helpful information. You'll see that items are coming in. They're animated and synchronized with the audio. And so that's one of those key features when you're doing slide-based authoring is you can use your audio to drive. It's not fully self-paced like Rise is, where they're reading at their own speed and can scroll quicker if they want to. In this case, Storyline provides you as an instructional designer or even as a subject matter expert, a little more control at the pace at which you want to deliver that content. And maybe there's some information you want to make sure they hear and see, as such we're doing now, before they actually get to an interactive portion of that. So I'm just going to scroll a little bit ahead here, and we'll get to the last part here.
Some common anxiety disorders you should be aware of as you work to support people in their recovery. Select the tabs of My Notebook to review each disorder, its signs and symptoms, and examples.
So
when all are complete, select Next.
So one of the things that people do like about Storyline is the ability to build custom interactivity. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that and show you how, not so much how this particular activity was built, but one very similar. And you'll see that at this moment, it's saying select the tabs to review. So we're talking about when you're building in Storyline, you're working with 4 what we call building blocks. The first one we've already been looking at is called a slide. And so a slide is that canvas where you're putting things on and you're determining what people see, what people hear, and when they see and hear it. So if you're just using that one building block, a slide, then you're controlling the pace of learning. But there may be times that you reach a moment where you're going, well, instead of me controlling what they see and hear, I want to put that learning power into the user's hands, then I want to create interactivity. And so we often ask this question, would this part of the content be better told or would it be better discovered? And whenever you reach a discovery point, it's when the other 3 building blocks come into play, which are going to be layers and states and triggers. So right now we're looking at a slide, but now you'll see these little tabs here that we're focused on here. And you'll see that when I hover over that, it changes. Each one of these will change as I hover. And those are called states. So that's one of our core building blocks. And we're going to talk about how you can build these if you don't already know how. But when you select the hover over a state, this is a hover state. And when I select this state, this object's going to change what it looks like. One, it's going to go away, but it'll be different too when we come back. And then you're going to see what we call a layer. And the layer is like, I'm going to put an invisible background slide on top of this slide. So instead of me jumping to another slide, I'm just going to bring that content up on top of this slide. So it looks like this.
Generalized anxiety disorder. Excessive fear or worry.
So I'm just going to scroll through that content. You'll see that we're able to animate on this. We're able to add audio. We're able to sync. We're able to add icons. So it functions a lot like a slide, except it's living on top of the existing slide. And that is a state, S-T-A-T-E. And basically think about a state of being. It's what something looks like. So what does that mean? This is a trigger here to close this layer. And you'll see now this is the visited state of that same tab. So we clicked on it once, and when we hovered on it, it looked like this. But now that we've clicked on that, it's now visited. So you can change what something looks like as you interact with it. And what's beautiful about that is there's actually a next button that's going to be down here. It's not here yet. So down here in the corner, there will be a next button, but we've told that next button not to appear until all of these tabs have been visited. So they can go in any order they want.
Obsessive compulsive disorder.
They can close these out.
Panic disorder.
And we're just showing layers. There's triggers on each of these. And when you think of a trigger, it's your action. What do I want to do? And when do I want to do it? So we've added triggers to these to say, hey, when you select this button, show this layer.
Social anxiety disorder.
And then eventually all of them will be visited.
Phobias.
Since we've changed these to visited states, we're also letting the learner know, hey, you've already seen this. You don't have to click on it again.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD.
And in this particular one, since it's just the one slide, we don't have the trigger showing the next button, but you'll see how that one would play out. So let's go into storyline and show you how we got to this point, and I'll, in that process, highlight some of those quick tips and tricks. And I've seen some questions coming in about what I was saying. I apologize. I have a very strong Southern accent, and so sometimes it might come across a little more nasal, but state with a T is what I was saying. And let's bring up storyline. So since some of you are fairly new to storyline, let's start here. When you first open up storyline, you're going to be in what we call story view, and you have what we call a scene, which is this larger rectangle here. And then inside of those scenes, if you're opening up a one from scratch, it would just have one slide inside of that scene. So scenes are not part of the building blocks. They're just a way of thinking about you dividing and chunking out your content. Well, I went ahead and built a couple of slides in here so you could see where we're starting from. And if you open up that particular slide, I'm going to double click that to work with. It'll take me into slide view. And you'll see that this is a slide. Now, this particular slide is blank, but there are other things you can do. And by default, you're opening up a completely blank story, then you would be responsible for all of the design. It's a blank slate. So you would think about what you want to put on this from the beginning. One of the tips that we recommend and we often use is we build slide masters and layouts to help you with design consistency. So if you've ever done something like that in PowerPoint, it would start also as a blank slide. Now I've got my drawing guides on here for now, but I'll turn those off so they're not distracting. You would start off with a blank slide, and you would have to go in and start adding elements by going to insert. Or if you wanted certain elements to already be there, you would come up to view your slide masters, and you would begin adding elements to the layout so that when you chose this particular layout, there would already be a few things there for you. And so I've already done that here to a couple of these, and I'll show you what this looks like. I'm going to go to Slide Master, and you'll see in here, there is the basic blank parent master, and then layouts that I've added to this ahead of time. And I didn't want to take the time to do that on this call, but you could easily come in and say, oh, I want to add another layout. I want a certain type of design that I want to be able to just choose from later and not have to recreate something from scratch every time I go to add a new slide. So for example, in this particular one, we have like a main course title. If we wanted to have some color with a course title, or it could be a section header here. I put a placeholder for a character if we wanted to add a character into the mix here. I have content here that is, you'll see I have content left and then image on the right. Over here, I have the opposite where I've added content to the right and image on the left. I went ahead and pre-built some things by adding placeholders to insert text and content where I might want that to be. So when it comes time for either me later or our developer to start building a course, they don't have to start from a blank slide if they don't want to. They could, because I always leave one in here that is blank, but I also have some that I've already pre-built with some bordering, and these borders have also been animated. So you'll see there's fly-in animations here. And so what do these look like? I'll show you in a moment, but we went ahead and built that so that these are things that don't have to happen every time you go to add a new slide. So I'm going to close the master out and show you what that would now look like. So for example, on this particular slide here, if I were to either come up to home and go to apply layout or right click and go to apply layout, I can choose, I want this slide to already have some elements. So I'm going to choose the title one for this one. And you'll see it already has, oh, there's a place for me to type in the course title. So I can add that here and say, this is a course about storyline. And the subtitle, tips and tricks. Like so. So I already have a little bit here, but now if I wanted to add an icon or a character, I have a placeholder for it. But if I don't need that, I can either delete that, or I could just, come down here and in the timeline, have it disappear. So if I didn't want it to disappear, since I might want to use it later, I could just poke it in the eye here and turn it off. Now, just for sake of time, I went ahead and built some elements on here that I can turn all back on. And you can see how this slide could really start looking, a little bit unique, just because of the background that was already built in. And all I did was add a couple of shapes and icons and some text in here to outline how this might play. So the other things that people do when they're building a layout like this is they might come up to design and come over to choose a color scheme. And so this is something that we recommend too as part of your layout and I've built one in here called ATDCFL, just sampling colors from your logo. The challenge with the CFL logo is it has a lot of orange in it. And orange is not a great color for accessibility. So I chose some of the more dark orange colors. Orange and white, for example, just are not that compatible when it comes to trying to make your courses more accessible. They don't provide enough contrast. So you'll see in here, I could right click this and hit edit and make some choices about what I want certain colors to be. Similar to what you might do in a PowerPoint. Now we also have this document here that would help, and I'll post this document in chat, but you'll see here, it's telling you what all these elements are. So for example, if you come in and go, I don't even know what accent 1 does. Well, we're telling you what's used for the fill shape, the fill color for your shapes, but not necessarily for buttons, for example. So you'll come in here and go, well, this is the default color for check boxes. This is the default hover color for buttons. And you'll begin to see how these colors are used. So I'm going to paste this at the end of the call so you'll have it in chat and be able to download that and use it as your guide if you're ever wanting to come in and edit a color panel. If you don't have one you can edit, let me show you what I mean by that. Because if you haven't built any custom ones in here and you come into the ones that Articulate is provided for you, if you right click those, they don't let you edit, but you can just choose one and then go create new to build your own. And what's beneficial about coloring is when I'm drawing a shape here in a moment, I'm going to choose a certain color from the theme colors. So later you could build something and then decide, oh, we're now, we want to use this for Discover card. We can pop this in and it'll pull Discover card's color theme up instead of it being, you know, the ATDCFL color scheme up. So those are a few things when we're thinking about building, is go ahead and let Storyline do some of the work for you by building a slide master and choosing a color scheme so that when you're beginning to add things to this, you might not have to build every slide from scratch every time. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. I'm not seeing a lot of questions pop in, so it could be that you're getting it or that you're totally confused. I will read, I guess that can be read either way. So the next thing you might want to do to a slide like this, and I'll go ahead and show you one of the cool features when you're building stuff in a slide view like this. So the question about importing your own slide master, you can do that, except not so much, you know, if you were to import a lot of people go, well, we already have one in PowerPoint. Can we just move that slide master? But if you wanted to do something like that, what I would recommend is you would come up to Slides, Import, and go ahead and import the PowerPoint, even if it's just one slide from the PowerPoint, because a lot of times what you've already got, let's say you have a PowerPoint deck that your marketing team wants you to use. They've, you know, and marketing usually has a better budget than training. So they've probably invested some time and money into this. So you might want to import it. Even if you import one slide, you will get the slide masters from that PowerPoint coming over and that color scheme coming over. So that would be the best way to do that if you're going to. So that's a great question, because a lot of people are going, we already have a PowerPoint deck that everybody's approved. They love it. We'll import that PowerPoint. And then you don't have to use the PowerPoint. You just now just stilling its background. So Brooke, you turned on your camera. Did you have a question or a comment? Oh, okay, just making sure. And then the other things I want to show you, when you build a slide, I will go ahead and say something since somebody asked about the import. If you do import from a PowerPoint, there's one key piece that I think is crucial. Under design, we didn't talk about this, but the slide size for Storyline, for me, I've chosen 1280 by 720. This can be a lot of different sizes. This is a custom size. The default slide size in Storyline is the 16 by 9, which is 960 by 540. It would be important, I think, for you to know what your slide size is in PowerPoint. If you import a PowerPoint that's 960 by 540 into a story size at 720 by 540, it's not gonna look appropriate. But as long as the aspect ratio is 16 by 9, which 1280 by 720 is, it would still look good. It would just enlarge everything. It would expand it to fit. So I would make sure those are fit, and slide size is a big part of that here. So when you're working with slides, you have your canvas. The other thing you have is this timeline. And so the timeline helps you determine when things are going to be happening here. So if you wanted to do animations and have things appear at certain times, I went ahead and put these icons and this particular banner in here called left panel. If I wanted to animate that, I can come up to animations, and I'm going to apologize. There is a new feature coming out in Articulate soon, and I will use a different version of Storyline, and that feature is already going to show up under my animations tab. So you're seeing something that normally is only available in beta versions as of the other day, but it's already in my staging version, and that's this emphasis animation. So we're not going to do anything with it, but it's already on the public roadmap. Everybody knows it's coming. But so emphasis animations have not been a part of Storyline. They will be soon, but I'm going to animate this particular shape to just fly in, and I'll show you what we can do with that. I'll click on an object, go to the animations tab. go to none and change that to an entrance of, let's say, a fly in. And then I can choose what direction. Maybe I want it to fly in from the top. And you'll see down here, that animation, this left panel already now shows this little bit of this window here to let you know this is how long it's going to take to animate in. So the timeline is very helpful for things like that. These items show that too, but I had animated these on the slide master ahead of time. So you can always do that as well. And now I can come in and choose these other animations. Let me show you what that might look like. All of these icons, I'm going to select the headphones, and I can hold down control and select them all even from the timeline if I wanted to. And I'm going to animate these to all fade in. And now I can move these to say, well, I don't want these in till that rectangle comes in. So maybe I want to start shifting things around here. And you can begin to see how I can see on the timeline how things are going to line up. And I could do the same thing with these words. You add that fade animation to those and have them move in along the same lines with these. So what does that look like now? One of the common ways people do this is just to go preview it. So I could come up here and hit this previews one slide, and you'll see how the slide plays. And so this already flew in because it was already part of the master slide. That flew in and these animated in. And then I could have these come in, you know, each row come in one at a time, and I could easily do that as I needed to. What I did want to show, a tip that some people don't realize is available yet in Storyline, is this little button right over here. Oh, let me zoom in there. It's called the timeline visualization option. So if you select that, you'll notice these items disappeared. And they're not gone anywhere, but basically it's saying, okay, here's your playhead, this little blue triangle. That's your playhead here. And it's saying at this moment in the time, what's on the screen. Since these items have been moved and animated, now I can drag this playhead and see things start to appear. And it helps me see, okay, this is the timing I want. I like, if I come in here and go, actually, when I get here, I don't want all of these things in there. I only really want the headphone icon and it contains audio. These other ones, the watch, I want to move it down a little bit further. So it's not going to show up. And the minutes, I'm going to move in alignment with that. If I wanted to stagger these, and the let's go and the contains and the foot icon, the run one, I'm going to bring in a little bit further. So now I can try this and see, okay, what does this look like? Oh, I like that staggering better. And so I can get a good feel for that. And I just always, Rebecca, recommend people when you're not using this to turn it back off. Because sometimes I've left it on and I go work on another slide and I come back to this slide and I'm going, oh, what happened to all of my stuff that was here a minute ago? Because this is still on. It's not going to show you that information on the slide. So using this timeline visualization piece could be very helpful with you're building something to get a nice effect going on here. So we're a little bit over halfway. So I might just stop for a moment. I don't see that there were any questions that pop up that I missed, but if anybody does have a question, since we're a small enough group, I think you could even unmute to ask that question if you wanted to, and we could go from there.
Yeah, great opportunity. I don't have a question. I'm just amazed at this tool. I haven't used any of it in years myself, but I'm just amazed. Anybody have a specific question or dialogue they want to have with Ron? Okay. All right. Here's another one. Okay.
All right, well, I'll just keep
Laura.
going. You can always raise your hand, and Brooke is
Yeah.
also on the call, and she's on our team. And if you ask a question during chat, she can also chime in and answer that as well. So one of the things, one of the things that I did mention that we would cover is the animation painter. And I do want to show you that because it's kind of a nice effect. And I'll show you format painter here as well. You know, a lot of people come in and go, well, I want to, for whatever reason, I'm changing. I've got these animations the way I want them. But let's say after review, somebody said, we really do want these to not fade in. We want them to fly in. So that's a great suggestion. So, and now you're thinking, but I've got several things that are animating in like that. I don't want to go in and change them all. So one of the things that we recommend is you can come up to, let's say, change this one to fly in. And I'm going to fly it in from the right. Well, so now I could select this object. And much like if you've ever used Format Painter or Animation Painter in PowerPoint, it works very similar with the object selected. I'll just come back in and select the edge of the object. Double-click Animation Painter. And then I can come in and select each of these items, and they'll be given this new animation. And then I just click on it again to turn it off. So now all of these will fly in. And so what's great if you have to make edits and they've changed the animations on you, so these are going to now fly in from the sides versus fading in. So using Animation Painter is a great way to create that consistency. And that's one of the challenges here. I think we see a lot of people build things in Storyline and they're just throwing stuff up on the slide and they're not being consistent with their design choices. Using things like Animation Painter allows you to go, well, I want it to look like I did all this on purpose. When they see something fly in, I want them to know I did it on purpose. And so that's why we might want to use something like that, which is a nice feature here. So the Animation Painter, similar to Format Painter, would work in your favor for this. So that's enough for that opening slide, and that's slides. And again, if you're only presenting content where you want to control what they see and when they see it, you can see that down here, then it's very easy for you to do that without using any of the other building blocks. So far, we've only used slides. We haven't used trigger states or layers. Now, I think on the other call, I may have introduced the concept of cue points, but I think we're at a point where it might be helpful to do that now, since some of you are newer and not everybody was at the last one. So let's do that after we see if there's a question. I saw a hand go up.
Yep. Alicia.
Ron, so at the very beginning, the narration, is that your voice?
No, that was one of our professional narrators when I showed the sample. But that is one of our, we use a team of professional narrators for all of our work. But that's what I'm getting ready to show you is I'm going to add some narration and some cue points here. The newer text-to-speech features they've just added, they've had text-to-speech in Storyline for quite a while, but this year they've upgraded those to more neural, so they sound more normal voices. And so they're really not too bad. So for example, if I had some notes and I'm just going to type in my transcript here, I'm just going to say, welcome to the course. I do want to spell it correctly, I think. I don't want to mess up someone trying to read. We are glad you are here. This course contains audio and will last about 10 minutes. And whenever you are ready, typing is not my strength. We're ready. Press next to begin. Wow. So let's say this is the narration that's going to go with this slide. So I just came to that by instead of the timeline, I slipped over to the notes tab. And this is where your transcript is. In PowerPoint, notes are like your presenter notes, and Storyline notes are your actual transcript. So if you were to turn on the notes panel on a published model, you would see those on the side. What I'm going to do is use this to generate our text to speech for this slide. And then I'll also show you how the closed captioning and the cue points will work. So let's say I'm ready to insert audio. I'll come up to insert. And it's very intuitive in Storyline. Insert is anything you want to add to a slide is going to be found under insert, including audio. So I'm going to come to audio. There are several options. If I already have audio recorded, like we have with our professional narration team or media library, I can record directly, or I can use text to speech. Text to speech still has the new moniker here. It's not new, but the neural voice part is new. So when you click on one, you can choose different languages or accents that you want. If you had written this in a different language, you could have it spoken in that language with that accent. If you are just using, English, you have a lot of different English versions. And then you'll see when I select in here, all of the English voices are the new neural voices. But some of the others you might come in, let's say if I do French Belgium, that's neural too. But there's some that have some of the standard and some of the neural. But I'm going to choose one of these. Let's find Kimberly. And then I can just say, just bring in the narration from my slide notes. And I also want to generate closed captioning. Now, what does Kimberly sound like? I can preview the voice here.
Hi. My name is Kimberly. I will read any text you type here.
Or maybe I don't like Kimberly and I want to go to Ruth.
Hi. My name is Ruth. I will read any text you type here.
And then I can hit insert. And now if I preview this slide, you'll hear that narration because it generated this audio file with these words. And it'll sound like this.
Welcome to the course. We are glad you are here. This course contains audio and will last about 10 minutes. Whenever you are ready, press next to begin.
So that sounds pretty decent. I mean, you're listening to me now for 45 minutes. I would much rather listen to Ruth than listen to Ron for 45 minutes. She has a very pleasant voice. So that's that. But you may have noticed these animations I worked so hard on didn't line up with what she was saying. So I'll show you this real quick, and then we're going to move into the interactive slide. I'm going to hit play down here. And what play down here allows you to do, it allows you to preview the course with the timeline being active. And now I can listen, and I can even bring the notes panel up too if I want to read along to make sure I know what's going to be said. Because you can always take any of these panels and move them anywhere you want. I'm going to bring that up, and I'm just going to add 2 points to this by hitting the play icon.
Welcome to the course. We are glad you are here. This course contains audio and will last about 10 minutes. Whenever you are ready, press next to begin.
So you'll see those numbers appeared. What was happening is while I was listening to that audio, when I read something she was about to say that I wanted to synchronize my animations to, I just pressed the letter C. So what does that do for me? Well, it created these cue points. And now with these cue points, I can come in and go, well, this headphone one, I want to right click that and say, align it to cue point 1. And same thing with the minutes one, because they were coming in around the same time. Not the minutes one. That one's going to cue point 2, sorry. That contains audio, cue point 1. The watch icon, cue point 2. And then the run icon, cue point 3. And I'm just right clicking these, and the words let's go are going to be aligned to cue point 3. So now here's what my slide looks like.
Welcome to the course. We are glad you are here. This course contains audio and will last about 10 minutes. Whenever you are ready, press next to begin.
So those items are now not only animated, they work quite well. So to add cue points, I see your question, Laura, is you can actually, as long as you're in the timeline, you can be anywhere you want to be. And then wherever this playhead is, there's a couple of ways of doing it. I could put this playhead somewhere, like where I see there's a break in the audio, and I could right click it and say, oh, add a cue point here, create a cue point at the playhead. That's not what I did. I could just press the letter C now, but for me to do it in real time, I hit stop to make sure the playhead is back at the very beginning. I hit the play icon down here. And as it's playing, I press the letter
Welcome
C.
to the course. We are glad you are here. This course contains audio and will last about 10 minutes. Whenever you are ready, press next to begin.
So I'll press the letter C one more time here at the end so you can see that. I don't need that cue point 4, but that's how that works. So that's slide work. And those are our tips and tricks for using slides. Going to create a slide master so you don't have to build the slide from scratch every time. So for example, this particular slide here, if I look at the home layout, I'm using the full slide content. Now, if I change that to right side content, and I'll go back to full slide, you'll see that it did have a placeholder in here for me to click and add text if I wanted to do that. I'm just not going to do that. I don't need the text on this one, so I'm going to click on it and then just poke that in the eye. So it's not there. It's there if I need it, but this is going to be an interaction slide. So in this one, let's talk about those other elements that might be helpful. And I'll show you a couple of shortcuts in here. We've got about 11 minutes left. So I've already built out layers. So I do want you to see here, I've built out a couple of layers. And a layer, think about it as a transparency that can sit on top of a slide. Now I just have to have a reason for those layers to show up. So in this case, like that exercise I demoed, we're going to create a tab style interaction. When you're building interactivity, most commonly people are using buttons. And I'm going to click on a button, and I'm going to draw this button around here. And for me, a lot of times with alignment and such, I might turn on my guides. And I like using drawing guides because you can always create new ones by right-clicking and saying, add a new horizontal guide. If I right-click off the top of the slide, I can add a new vertical guide. And you can move them in different places. Like if I want to make sure all of these are lined up and such. So I've added a button. I'm going to call it Topic 1 button. One of our best practices is to name things in the timeline. I'm going to put on the button just the words Topic 1. It shows the coloring. That was the default coloring from the element I chose. However, if you were going, I know that pulled that from here, but I really want my buttons to be one of my other colors that are within this framework. Let's say you wanted a darker 25% of this color button to be your color. You could do that. And then the other thing you could do is then right-click this button. And especially if you wanted your buttons, even let's say you wanted them to have a border. Let's just get fancy here and go, I want all of them to have this border, and I want this border to be a thick border. Now, there's a couple of things I can do with this. One is if I were to draw another button, it doesn't look like that. But if I want all of my buttons to be consistent, I could now come in here and select this button. As long as I'm on the edge of it, not inside of it, but on the edge of it, select it. I can hit Format Painter, and then I can make this button look like that button. Now, if you, that includes, even if I added states to that, it would even paint those states. And if you double-click Format Painter, you can paint multiple buttons. The other thing, though, that some people don't realize you can do is that you could right-click this button and say, set as my default button. And this means if I come in here now and go, I'm going to draw a new button, even a rounded button, it's going to, well, not that one, draw a new button, sorry. can't be the rounded one. It's going to have those characteristics of that button. So that way it looks like I know what I'm doing. I'm being consistent with my design. So then, in this particular case, I'm going to duplicate these, and I'm using a shortcut called Control Drag. And if I hold down Shift while I'm controlling and dragging, it keeps it in alignment. As you can see, I can't drag it out of alignment unless it's horizontal or vertical. And I'm just going to rename these real quick to Topic 2, Topic 3, Topic 4. I'm also going to multi-select these, and I can drag and lasso them or hold down Shift or Control while I'm selecting them. Under Format, there's a nice little distribute these vertically so they look like they're done on purpose again. And then I'm just going to rename these on my timeline here. This is button 4. This is button 3. And this is button 2. Actually, I should say Topic 2. That's what I meant to say. A lot of numbers in there now. So now that's our, now what they've done here is they've added by default states to these buttons since we chose a button. And I'm going to come in and real quick edit the visited state so you can see what that looks like. I have an object selected. I hit edit. I'm going to come to the visited state. And in this particular state, I'm just going to add a icon, which is one of the features built in to Articulate 360. And I'm just going to call it check mark. And I'm just going to add that check mark to this button. And I'm just going to color it white for now, just to make it easy. So now my visited state has that but check. But if I hit done editing states, you'll notice these other ones don't. So this is a good opportunity for me to go, well, I want to apply that check to all of them. I'll use Format Painter. I'll double click it. And now all of these buttons will have the white check on their visited state. Now, lastly, what we're going to do is real quickly add a trigger to show this layer that I've already built down here. So I'm going to do a new trigger. And a trigger is asking two questions. What do you want to do? When do you want to do it? I want to show a layer. I want to show layer 1. When the user clicks, topic button 1, topic 1 button. So that's the what do I want to do is here. And when is here. That's all the trigger's doing. And then I can easily say, well, I want these other triggers to do something very similar. I can copy that trigger. I'm going to select these other buttons. And I'll just select them all at one time by holding down Shift and paste that trigger to those. And then all I have to do is come in and say, what is topic 2 button supposed to show? It's supposed to show topic 2. And topic 3 button is supposed to show topic 3. And topic 4 button is supposed to show topic 4. So being able to duplicate and copy these things will be helpful. But watch when I preview this slide now. There are buttons. When I select one of these, it changes to visited, and this pops in. Changes to visited, and the next layer pops in. And you can tell, oh, I visited them all now. And so one of the ways that we do some control over this is you might have an option to say, and this is something that our team uses a lot, they might cover up using a hotspot, which is just an invisible interactive piece. But it also can be used in this case like a mask and say, you know, I've got some narration. They're going to be talking for a while. And maybe it takes 9 minutes for that narration to finish. 9 seconds, sorry. I don't want them clicking on these buttons till I'm finished telling them what to do. So I can cover up this hotspot with the hotspot and then just get to the very end of this and drag it off at the very end. So now when I preview this slide, even though the buttons are there, let's say my narrator's talking, the user can't select these buttons. Not until 9 seconds has completed. And you'll see this change to a hand here in just a second. Now they can. So I can control that, using the timeline, you can do a lot with this. The last piece I did want to show you is if we added some triggers, this is that big one. I added another layer in here, and there's certain layers that can behave differently. And those are called under layer properties. If I click this little gear icon, this particular layer is called a dialogue layer. So it will cover up the whole screen, and they have to interact with it before they can move on. These layers have different properties where I'm just saying, don't hide the other slide layers, but I'm treating it like a normal layer. Let me show you what I'm going to do real briefly. And I know this is going by incredibly fast. We're just about out of time, if not already. I'm going to now add a trigger that says change the state of my next button to hidden when the timeline starts of this slide. So we're saying time this slide starts, hide the next button. And then I'm going to add another trigger. I'm going to copy that one actually and edit it to say, change it to the next button to normal when the timeline starts on this slide. If all of these objects, I'm going to say the state of topic 1 is visited, and topic 2 is visited, topic 3 is visited, and topic 4 is visited. Now that's only going to work if they leave this slide and come back. So I also have to have one more trigger, and sometimes our team uses variables for this, but you can do it without variables, and that's going to be change the state of the next button to normal when the state of all of these buttons is visited. Now I just did a whole lot there, but here's what that now looks like. This time I'm going to preview instead of this. I'm going to preview the whole project. We're at 1 o'clock, so sorry if it's too late for some of you. Here's that first slide.
Welcome to the course. We are
Skip
glad
that. And now this slide, there's no next button, just a previous button. So if I select this topic, I can't till 9 seconds. There we go. This one, this one, this one. Once I select this one, I should have a next button. And now I do. So that was that one trigger that said once all these changed to visited. But if I leave the slide and I come back, I also have that trigger that says, oh, when this timeline starts, if these are already visited, don't hide the next button anymore. So this allows you to have that level of interactivity that you might want to have. So those are some of our tips and tricks to do with more complex stuff. I know that's a lot for some of you who are brand new to it. Email me with any questions that you have. I can stay on for another minute if it's okay, if anybody has any questions, and then I'll go ahead and pull this back up.
Well, thank you, Ron, and thank you those who have been able to stay on. I know a few had to jump off, so we appreciate your time and your attention in this learning experience. We can't thank you enough, Ron, for sharing so much knowledge with us and the chapter. For those of you who are still on the call, I just want to share with you that we definitely have the program team busy lining up events and speakers for next year. We have our next session on January 17th from 12 to 1, where we kick off the 2024 programs with Sierra Marquardt. I hope I said that right, and Pamela Huggle. So check our website for all those dates and times, and we hope to see you again. Alicia, yes.
Ron, so if you purchased a subscription, what type of support do you get? Because this is a lot. I am so old school, need to
Yeah.
move into the new era. How does that work with having that support to help?
Yeah. So one of the things you have when you have the subscription is on your dashboard, you have access to something called Training 360. And it's all of the webinars and that are live and on demand that Articulate's team, Tom Coleman, David Anderson, and Ginger Swart, they put those together. They're great. And they're all included in your purchase of the subscription. What we provide at Yukon is a separate structured training. That's what people pay in addition for that. So but everything that we teach in our live webinars, you could eventually get to in all of the on-demand webinars. It just might take you a little longer and you have to kind of design your own learning plan, but there's tons of free resources out there available. And I'll show, am I still sharing my screen?
Yes.
I'll show one thing too that a lot of people overlook, this little question mark in the upper right-hand corner. If you select that, it opens up the Articulate user guide. And it can just walk you through all the different things that we did on this call. Oh, I want to know how to add a slide. I want to know how to work with basic layouts and working with layers. So you'll see a lot of different things in here. Even we didn't do quizzing today, but it goes into the quiz stuff. So that little question mark that's built into the tool takes you straight to the user guide. And under help as well, you can get to the e-learning blog, which is Tom Coleman's blog. You can go to the Storyline Hub, and that brings you to all the discussions and things out here that you might want. But also, anytime you go to your Articulate 360 account, there's Articulate 360 training right here. And that opens up, hey, what tutorials are available? What are the upcoming live webinars? And what about on-demand webinars that are already there? And you can do a search to find just about anything you want.
And then the other question I have is, when you're doing the narrations, I noticed you typed all of your notes, so it translated. So is that the only way, or can you record it in your own voice without having to type everything? How does that work?
No, you can record it in your own voice. Typically, though, people want that note. They want it somehow, if you're doing a legal review, you can publish this out to Word and they can see the notes. And then people have that. But yeah, you could do it live without having notes. Just typically with the world of accessibility, a lot of people want to make sure I'm giving any user every opportunity to see this content. So they can hear it, they can read it, they can see it in closed captioning. So there's a lot of options we provide when we're doing that.
Okay, thank you.
That's a great question.
Yeah. Thanks for staying to ask. Brenda, Dallas, do you have any questions for Ron?
No, thank you. It's clear for me. I am waiting for the
Good.
recording for review the session.
Oh,
Thank
yes.
you, Ron.
Go to the YouTube channel. You'll see them there.
Yeah, I can find the part 1.
You did or you didn't?
Yeah. I can.
Oh, okay. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for being here.
And all good here. Thank you so much. Great session.
You're welcome, Brenda.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
all.
being
Thanks
here.
for being here. And thank you, Anita.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Alicia. I didn't mean to jump into the last part of the session, thanking you and everything. I just wanted the people who were leaving to hear it.
Oh, I understand. Absolutely. That's why I tried to wait.
So
I
thank you
understand.
for that. Yeah. Well, Ron, again, and Brooke, if you're still online, we all can't thank you enough for sharing your knowledge and all that you do with our chapter. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate you all a lot. So thank you very much for having us.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay.
Well, I wish you all a great holiday.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.